60 men are lost to suicide globally every hour. It's quite a tricky statistic to get your head around. 60 men taking their own lives every hour globally. Why is that figure so high? What is it about men taking their own lives, again, compared to women, but also what are the key elements of male suicide?
When we talk about something like a male mental health crisis or a mental health crisis in general, or things like depression or suicide, one of the things that bothers me is we can over-medicalize it and treat it like it's an epidemic, like we talked about COVID-19, like COVID-19 is an illness, depression is an illness, and of course depression is something you can see in the clinic and diagnose and treat. But I think when we talk about it in these terms, again, we're seeing it almost like it's a disease, as if the way someone has a happy, fulfilling life is a mystery, as if we have no idea what makes up a life that's worth living. And that's total BS. We have an understanding of what helps most people, the vast majority of people, what helps them be mentally healthy and have a life that they feel, productive and that they want to engage in. I think sometimes we almost avoid talking about it in these terms because we don't want to have the uncomfortable conversations, talking about things that we've already mentioned, like having work that's actually fulfilling, feeling like you can date and attract people into your life, having high quality friendships, things like that. So just like having a good quality life is not a mystery, if you're physically healthy, if you have work you enjoy, if you can create wealth, if you can have good relationships, that's clearly the path to a good life. It's also not a mystery why the opposite is happening in a lot of cases. Men are very isolated. Men often feel like they can't access work where they feel autonomous and in control and like they're having an impact. Men feel very isolated romantically, and again, problems attracting women in many cases, declining social skills.
And where has that, sorry to cut in, where has that come from, the issue with building relationships? Because I know you referenced internet dating and apps, etc. Towards the start, but at what point did it become more difficult to get into more meaningful relationships? Are we talking 50 years? Are we talking 20 years? And what are the key sort of reasons behind that?
I don't know if I'm an expert on that, if I can pinpoint the exact dates, but I would say clearly it's been a gradual progression, and sometimes things happen very gradually in history and then they happen all at once. I think probably the introduction and rapid growth of social media and dating apps, combined with a culture where, again, men are very much encouraged to disown their aggression, to leave it behind, and are not encouraged to be, for example, assertive with women in a respectful way. There's no conversation that we're having in our culture of like, as a man, how do you assert yourself romantically with a woman while being respectful? We're just not having that conversation. The conversation we're having is about the small minority of like psychopathic men, like a Harvey Weinstein type, who is doing a lot of damage to women. And I don't want to dismiss that because these people do a lot of damage. But by just focusing on that, we're not having the broader conversation that we need to have about how men and women should engage each other on a romantic level, form good quality relationships, have families, have children. And as I said before, we're seeing the results of this, like birth rates are declining, marriage and relationship rates are declining, like it's actually having an effect. So I think it's extremely important. So largely, I think it's the technologies. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I don't think this is really what anyone wants, but it's the unintended consequence of bringing in these very powerful technologies, combined, I think, with a cultural shift and, again, a lack of thinking in mainstream consciousness about how the hell men are supposed to be aggressive in a way that's healthy, I think.
And when we define aggression, we're not talking about a sort of will to want to fight necessarily
No.
as such. Could you
No.
define
Yeah.
aggression for us?
Thank you for asking that, actually. When I'm using aggression in this context, I'm using a very broad definition of aggression, which both men and women need, by the way. But I mean the ability to feel what you want and go after it in life, whether that's like wealth or relationships or friendships, whatever, and the ability to defend against what you don't want. If someone is impinging on you in some way, someone is being aggressive against you in some way that's unjust, the ability to defend against that. Now, that could be obviously in the most serious situation, a physical confrontation, but it could also be your boss